I also think we need to move forward on it. So I believe this conversation is largely between me, Will, and with Ellison chiming in. And then Christian also being aware that some of what here we're proposing may take place at his house. I've had an offline discussion with Christian about what it will, maybe the next steps for getting into his house, but I specifically want to talk about Epic Homes. We've had this type of discussion before. What I would like to leave with is a list of action items, who's doing them, and approximate timeline for when they should be done. And I would also like to know when we will be in our first Epic Home and answer Will's questions about what the occupants may want to know. And
Tammy, or sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, it sounded like you might have another thought to share. I think it might make sense if I start us off and just tell you
I'm
where we're
happy
at
to-
with our home.
Totally happy to do that. I didn't know if you had, I didn't ask you to prepare anything, so.
Okay, well, but I think both Will and I feel pretty prepared for this conversation, and largely because of Will's work continuing to engage with the remaining Epic Homes participants who we've been finishing up additional closeout exit interviews that I think I've explained before are meant to bring our study to an end because it needs an end point. And so this is kind of perfect timing in my mind because we've had two rounds of conversations with the people who are exiting the Epic Home study. And so far, to my knowledge, Will, you can correct me, there's been no one who said we can't follow up with more information. There might have been one by email, or a few that have been like two that have just not responded very much. But all of the people that we've talked with have said we can follow up with them to move forward with what we would call informed consent. So a precise number I don't have, but let's say it's around 10. I think where we're at is we're ready to send out the next communication that would lead to a conversation. But sorry, I don't mean to jump around, but something that's come up since then is that recognizing that this is an exempt study. Does that mean we don't have, like, what does informed consent look like for an exempt study? That's something I realized I don't know.
I can chime in here. It's there is no required formatting for it, but we went ahead and submitted ours just utilizing basic formatting for that. But you still want to have that something formal for them to sign or approve. But I've already submitted one to IRB. They say they don't have particular purview over how it looks, what it has, as long as it has all informative information. So they're okay with the one that we have downloaded or we have uploaded into IRB, and I can send it to you as our final if you'd like. But we're also able to change it as needed as long as that doesn't change our sway of the study basically.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting to think about what that means. But in any case, I think where that puts us is, I think, and I saw, Will, you said we have at least 10. So thanks for putting that in the chat. I think, Tammy, in my mind, we are ready to enroll people into what I would call the Sapphire study. I think from my view, it's fine for us to even start that in the next couple of weeks, even if the engagement with them might be with a month out, like not knowing what the timeline is for Dom and anyone else involved in the measurement piece. I think we could get started. I think so maybe I'll just stop there. There's other things on my mind, but I was
Okay,
hoping that
so
would
let-
answer at least the question of like readiness.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let me give some context from Mason, who hasn't, I don't think he's experienced with this part of the project. Mason, part of this project is we're going to be measuring pressures in some homes where Ellison is already measuring air quality so that we can try to relate the indoor, outdoor air quality to the way we think the homes are functioning. So, and Ellison's got an existing study, and this discussion is about going in and adding measurements at the end of that study. And there's some complexities with that, like you have to have people's permission to go into their homes, and there's a lot of logistics around it. So that's what you're going to hear. For those on the call who don't know, the IRB was submitted. Thank you, Taylor, and came back marked that exempt, which means that we're not doing human subjects research with this portion of the study. And so we don't need their oversight. And so that's what some of the early questions were about. Any other questions about from people who may not have background? Okay, so, and Ellison, may I just confirm that your IAQ measurements will remain in place during this part of the study?
IAQ measurements are intended to be in place, but they might be done by reinstalling instruments
Okay,
rather than keeping them going.
okay,
I can say more about that. It does get into like the weeds of like the quality of older Omnis versus newer ones. I think in my mind, what would be, if I can say this, what would be ideal would be that we enroll on a rolling basis so that we can accommodate the first couple with existing instruments that we have. But I think I had mentioned a while ago, I'm trying to get a batch of new instruments because ours are old. We don't have the capacity team-wise or financially to like fix them, calibrate them. It'd be easier to just get new ones and install those as we set up a home. So the same IAQ measurements would be in place: bedroom, living room, kitchen, and an outdoor measurement. We still plan to do a blower door measurement, and I think Paul did the training with Dom and Will for that.
Yep.
But right now we've taken down the Omnis in the homes that are closing out because they are reaching their end of life for subscription. They're older. And I don't feel like they are going to be giving us really the kind of information that I think you will want. So, and solving that problem would be the ideal case would be we get all the new instruments in the next couple of weeks installed in all the homes, but I think it'll be more a matter in the first couple homes of selecting our best instruments and deploying those, and then as we move forward, replacing more the new homes with their new homes. The terminology here is killing me.
Okay, and so
The later couple of homes might have newer instruments.
okay, sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you. My internet connection may be bad because you cut out for me. So I thought you had stopped talking, sorry. But I think I got the gist, which is that you've got some logistical considerations that are leading you to a staged implementation of the air quality measurements. The ideal would be that the first two would be with existing measurements. I think logistically that we would not have the capacity to take on all 10 homes at once either. So I think identifying two that we want to go into as the possibly best candidates, and then they may be best simply because you're retaining the equipment there. that might be a good solution. Does
Yeah,
that sound
No,
okay?
that helps a lot to know. Yeah, that definitely helps to know that you weren't thinking of like going live in 10 homes all at once. One thing I actually just want to verify, since Will, you are here, can you confirm that? I think I have been the one saying like we're removing all instruments from people's homes, so there are no homes with ongoing measurements, or am I wrong about that?
There are some homes that have omnis in them. And that
Okay.
was just when we first started these talks. The first few people who said they were interested in a new project, regardless of
Yeah.
what we were doing, we just left those running. And I said that I would come back and just get those rebooted whenever we started. And
Okay.
we shifted gears later on and just started taking everything out once we kind of decided
Yeah.
that the omnis need to be replaced. So there are some homes that have omnis in them. I can
Okay.
look and see which ones those are. If you want to know that now, but there's only a few
I
of
don't know
them.
that we need to know well, actually, yeah, maybe while I'm talking, if you do want to look up which those are. So thanks for, that was my slight third. I thought I had that memory, but then I wasn't sure. So Tammy, I think what that means is there are a few homes that from our perspective, because they already do have they have the omnis still in place, those are probably slightly preferred because they're just already set up. But I think something that keeps coming up for me is I don't know if there are any other criteria that you want to consider for selecting candidate homes first over those that come later.
There may be, I think that's what we can talk about next. So
Okay.
I think just bringing out the issues that are arising, and then like that, those will naturally lead us to select the best homes. I think we can,
Yeah.
there's going to be points where we go, oh yeah, let's do the other one. Right.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so I'm hearing that instrumentation in place is a selection criterion, but not a hard and fast one. It would be better. It would be better. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, better, but not like I don't feel like it's a very big deal, in part because you don't need any of the past data. So whatever is our start date in a home, all that matters is that the IAQ measurements are also up and running in that home. And I think we're in position to do that. And we're, I think, a little bit better off if that enrollment is staged over time instead of all at once.
So I think one thing to do would be, we've got some questions in the chat. Of those homes that are candidates, can we just start a spreadsheet in the in our Epic Homes folder and begin populating it with characteristics of those homes, including whether they have omnis installed now? Paul has asked whether there are duplexes or townhomes, and I have more questions like what's the approximate floor area, and yeah, and so like size and number of stories. So I think those will help me think about which ones may be the best candidates. So we can start, perhaps I can start a spreadsheet, and then Will can help fill in on the characteristics.
Yeah, I can do that. I can fill in, I can let you know like the home type. I'll have to do some digging as far as the size of the homes, but I'm pretty sure we have that, like those home characteristics somewhere. I just haven't done anything with that information. So I'm starting.
Yeah, I can help with that too, Will.
Okay. So in terms of what you were calling enrollment, and you were saying, let's get started enrolling now, would you want to go for, like, would you want us to identify 2 homes and begin to set an install date for them?
maybe I should back up and say, I think we would be ready to start.
And
Looks like I got cut out.
yeah, sorry.
I think my device is popping between CSUnet and not that. So can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I was coming into this conversation assuming that you wanted to start ASAP. And if that's the case, I think we can do that. I'm not necessarily advocating for next week or the next couple weeks, unless you are. I think, and Will can tell me if I'm wrong, I think the people that we've contacted are very open to being contacted again. And I don't think that that's going to decline with, a couple extra weeks. If it were like next year, maybe their situation would change, but I think a couple weeks or even a month or two wouldn't matter for their willingness to consider participating. I was more thinking that if you want to start next week or with enrollment, we're ready to do that. But I'm not pushing for it unless you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So let me tell you a little bit about my timing considerations. So first, a question: from the time you begin contacting people to say, hey, we're ready to go, to the time we are in those homes, how long do you think it will be? Because it usually takes some back and forth time, and you have experience engaging with these people. So are we talking about we could go tomorrow, or is it more like 2 or 3 weeks later?
Yeah, my sense is 2 or 3 weeks later at the earliest. Maybe Will, if you want to comment, because you've been doing the most recent scheduling.
I would say, I don't know if she got cut out. I would say based on just talks that we've had, I know there's at least 2 homes that could be, depending on their schedule, could be ready pretty quickly. We have quite a few people that were, like retired and stuff like that, and they were really engaging in our exit interviews and talking about this, and they have a considerable interest in this new project. So I wouldn't be able to do it next week because I'll be out in the field for CDPHE, but there's already at least 2 or 3 homes I know that would be ready pretty quickly, just
Okay.
based on their level of interest. I mean, obviously there's a scheduling component to that, but
Okay. So, so a few specific things about timing. Dom obviously is not here this week. He's been able to take some time off, but such that as soon as he gets back, I'm going to start pushing him to get things done. There is an intermediate, which is that we're not in Christians or Site 102, whatever we choose yet. And I would like the experience of installing in another home before we go into Epic. And I would like to get a couple of weeks of data. So, however, depending on when I could schedule with Christian time or the next person, I think it could be done relatively quickly. That could be started, given the assuming that there's going to be some hiccups, right? And I want those hiccups to occur at Site 102 rather than at the Epic homes. So Dom will be back mid next week. I hope to go into Site 102 either before then or right when he gets back. And then with 2 weeks under our belt, I will feel ready to go. Ellison, I've been saying Site 102 because Christian has offered his home. Until we're in, I'm not saying that it's definitely Christian and it's suitable and he's ready to do that. Yeah, so Paul, you might be available for Site 102. So yeah, so I'm calling it Site 102 that is likely to be Christian and could be somebody else. We have a lot of experience at my home now on things that work and things that do not work and things that we need to watch out for. It does not mean that we are ideally situated to execute if we don't have a home network like the one Christian does that collects all its data together. So we have to be mindful of the data that we're collecting from each instrument. I am willing to do that through Epic Homes and just assign out Dom to be really careful with it. But it does mean that we would be very challenged to manage 10 homes at a time, because we don't have a nice streaming platform. We need to go check each instrument. And in the interest of moving forward, I'm willing to do that. So, and then there's also an issue that both Paul and I will not be available for a large part of August. And so I'm a little bit reluctant to have Dom and Will do that on their own. And so I feel like it's either we go into a home August 2nd or we wait until 20th. Other than that, I feel much more ready to go than I did before. And I don't know what's caused that. It's probably drilling the holes that has made that work. So y'all have heard these hole drilling references throughout our discussions. And I'm gonna share just the photographs. So the issue has been that we need to get delta pressure across the building envelope. And it's difficult to do without either drilling a hole through the shell or going through a window. And the problem with the window is that then that window is not sealed. And so then you need to tape it up, preventing the occupant from opening it, which is unpleasant, particularly in the summer. And you also have a security issue. And so I've been really uncomfortable with asking people to do that. And I've been reluctant to drill holes through the wall. And but I have now drilled holes through the wall with the encouragement of a handyman who we may hire to do some of the homes and we may not. But this person just said, it's not really a big deal to drill a hole through the wall. You're making it way too hard. So this is a photograph of, I need to zoom in, of one of the holes through the wall. So what you see here is the actual hole that's drilled. It's an 1/8 inch diameter hole, and the little black thing is a rubber bushing that prevents it from sliding through the wall. And then over, that's on the right hand side, and on the left hand side, you can see it going to the hole, and then this tube needs to go to the manometer, and so it's just looped up over the curtain rod. So if someone is particularly sticky about their interior decor, this may still not be their project. But that's the kind of thing that that we can do. It's especially okay to drill the high holes, which is the ones we've been worried about, because the windows are really the only solution for those. But the handy person pointed out to me something that should be extremely obvious, and that is that up high, there's no plumbing or electrical. So I don't know what I was worried about. So he's like, just drill the damn hole, basically. And I did. You need a fairly powerful drill and a 12-inch bit, which we have now. I actually, the drill is powerful enough that it went through I drilled through a plate on a thick metal plate on the outside. But I had my outside taped up, so I couldn't go out and see what was on the outside. I was like, there's nothing out there. And I just went right through. Turned out I drilled through a metal plate. Okay, next time we'll check. We will do it before the door is sealed up. The door will not have to be sealed up.
One thought there, Tammy, not to derail, but
Yeah.
all of our stuff comes from as a ranch home, all of our utilities, the majority of our electricals coming from the attic, not through the floor. So we would have everything high.
Yeah.
So
I'm
Just-
okay. One thing that I am,
no, just to your statement before of like, well, when we put it up
Sure.
high, we're not watching those things, at least for our house. Yeah, they would be, we're more risky going up than we
Okay.
are going down.
Good
So
to
just something
know.
to keep in mind.
good to know. So, but this brings up, what Christian is saying brings up something that I want to raise. That I think this question of hole placement and where to drill them is probably something that should be pre-discussed before sending out the field personnel. Because there's scientific questions and there's practical questions. And so when I talk to Christian, he says something like, well, this is brick and there's an overhang here and so on. I want to see those things so I can make the decision. And so, Epic team, do you have photographs of each home that we can review? We can do the top from satellite view. And we can Google Street Map a little bit. But what's our level of photographic evidence, or do we need to go out there and take photographs beforehand? Or do we just need to send senior people on the team to make those decisions?
Oh, we don't have the photo resources that you would need, I think, to make that decision. So then the other two options that I think you raised, you know, if there's a staged visit, like there's a first visit and a second visit, we haven't really talked about things that way. We've talked about everything like blower door installation, if there's any installation, everything happening at once.
Mhm.
And there are advantages to that. I think, you know, after having met with the people that we've met with, Will, like I've softened a little bit. I'm feeling like it would be a deal breaker to do 2 visits. I could be wrong. They haven't said like we're fine with that, but I think if we wanted to do that, because we aren't able to send senior personnel to make those decisions, I think we could do like a, you know, get started visit and, you know, a second visit. I don't know, Will, if you disagree, please speak up now, because I could be wrong, but my feeling in those conversations is like, oh, we could ask for that as long as we ask for it upfront.
Yeah, I agree with you. I haven't gotten the sense that anybody would be put off if we have to make multiple visits or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they might be happy to see us more. This go around.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there was a lot more like warmth in there, like, it's nice to have you, and your team is really nice. I mean, you and Kennedy are great, and Tyler too. So maybe in that sense, I'm not surprised, but all that to say, Tammy, if you want to stage it so that there can be photos, assessment in the lab or back, you know, in the office, and then go back out, I think that's feasible.
But I do also think that some of the decision-making could be done without disturbing the occupants. Maybe they want to see us, but I don't want to assume
Yeah,
that their time is available. I want to minimize the disruption to their lives. And so
Yeah.
I'm happy to go just take outdoor photographs, bring them back to the team, like do a day where we just drive around and take photos, and then come back. Yeah, Paul, I think that's a good idea too. And I think Ellison, you probably have some training on placement of your air quality sensors, right?
yeah, we've done different trainings, and Will's just been involved for the closeout, so I don't think he's been involved on the front end of installations.
Mhm.
So. I mean, I was just thinking about to type this in the chat, but if we did a training session for assessing good locations, we could just sort of wrap this all into one, like, I mean, if we're implementing a survey, correct?
We don't have a survey.
Oh, I thought the communications team no, that's right, this is the.
No, communications doing.
Yeah, that's why this
other
is not
sessions.
human
It's
subjects
completely
anyway, so-
separate right now.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Actually, that's bringing up a point that seems worth assigning as an action item. At the very least, it seems like a visual inspection walkthrough type survey where you're not asking anything of the people, but you're noting things that are important for like layout, or I don't know if there are things like that you want. When we've done them, it's more been like visual inspection for sources of indoor air pollution.
Yeah,
You don't have to do
Put
that,
in
but
the link, I put in a link to the current field forms. You may not be able to edit them because it's housed in Dom's drive, but under
Okay.
the diagnostic team, I put a link to the folder on Dom's drive that has our field forms.
Okay.
And field forms, there's one that's called field site initiation.
Mhm.
And those are, I'm happy to take comments on that. But there's some things that those are the types of things that I'm asking.
Okay.
And if there are some that you already know, then we don't need to redo those.
Yeah.
And Paul, I'd especially like your comment on this to see if we've gotten enough. Some of those are just quality control, like check that the thing is logging.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
So Ellison, I don't know if that answers your question, like what would we want? I
Yeah.
think the reason we got away without IRB is that we don't have a survey, so we
No,
can't. add it.
that's nice. I'm glad. I think that makes it a lot easier.
And so, things that we're looking at are ones that are gonna change the leakage of the home and the ventilation of the home. I don't have anything in there about window openings, and it's something that I am interested in, because of course, that makes a big difference in indoor outdoor exchange. I'm not that able to discern window openings from our pressure data, which I thought I would be.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So this is a pressure story, so I won't go into it. But so I thought we'd have more indication about window openings from the measurements we were making. But other than that, getting the stack height right is really important. We've begun to look at stratification, because I think that could be one of the reasons for the mismatch in the stack effect. So
Mhm.
temperature stratification. And so we want to pay attention to taking temperature measurements at a couple of different heights. So I'm trying to keep it simple, well, as simple as possible, but no simpler kind of thing. And Will, I particularly like your comment too on field site initiation. I'm expecting that Dom will go out with you most of the time and fill this out. But as the point person, you should be comfortable with everything that's being done and be aware of what it is, so you're not asking why somebody's standing on a chair kind of thing.
Did you say Dom's back next week or
Yeah, he's back.
could, could Will and I meet with him? I mean, and you're here through the end of the month?
I am, yeah. I'm leaving right after the REUs leave. I'll probably be on the same flight with them.
Okay. Okay, heading to the airport at the same time.
Like, we're done.
Can I come back around the dates that I heard you say? Did you say
Yeah, so-
August 20th?
Correct.
Would
Yeah.
be like if we were to talk about we're going live date, would that be
Mhm. That would be a good date.
a good date? Because
It feels a little bit long in the future to me, but it's probably realistic.
I think that feels, yeah, comfortably realistic to me too, thinking about what Will and I need to assemble. I do think it might be worth, partially so Will's more familiar with the field initiation form. If he and I could sit down with Dom and just go through it, maybe there'll be things that it gives us. Like I can go find in our existing data set or recognize that we don't have. I think that would be helpful. I think it would also just, I don't want to waste people's time going through it, but it would feel good to just be on the same page about what is it going to look like when we show up. We're going to do this field initiation thing. We're gonna do a blower door test. We're going to check that all the indoor air quality sensors are working. If the three of us, I'm thinking Will, you, Dom, and I could sit down and come up with that step-by-step checklist, even next week, that would feel really nice to me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know, Will, you're out for fieldwork for CBPHE, so that might not.
Right, so it'll have to be the week after. I think Dom is back for the rest of the summer.
Okay.
After that. I'd like to be in that meeting.
Okay.
I've modified the initiation form substantially since Dom left, and so he probably wouldn't recognize it right now.
Okay.
All the stuff is there, but there's more stuff. As I've tried to analyze the data and realize what I would like to know. The other thing to know is that, I haven't seen the results yet, but Dom has identified an application that makes a floor plan and calculates the house volume, and it's like a phone thing where you aim it at the corners. He tried 3 or 4 of them and got one that he liked the best. So, but I have yet to see the results from my house, so I'll be convinced when I see it, but that is something we're planning to do to give us a floor plan.
Okay.
I would say if any of the homes have been recently sold, like within the last few years, Zillow puts floor plans on, realtors are starting to put floor plans on the net,
Yeah.
so sometimes that's a good thing to do too.
I have a friend who does those assessments and measurements for a living, so. If you let me know which one Dom used, I'm sure they could give a pretty quick
Okay,
yay or nay, like,
I'll-
is that junk or not?
Okay, I don't remember, but I'd love
Yeah.
to have that input. Yeah,
Now, they also do it for business, so I'm sure they're a little harsh on any of them, but I bet they could give us is it the good or the bad of the cheap options?
um, and then I just want to recognize that there may be some things that we need to know that the occupants won't know. Like Christian says, my electrical comes in through the attic. Most people, if you ask them where their electrical comes in, they have no idea. And so the plumbing is never going to come in from the attic. So that's the thing that I'm like more afraid of hitting than the electrical, believe it or not. But some critical things like, does your air handler have makeup air? I'm guessing most people would not know that.
I think that's a very
They-
safe. Okay.
They don't even know if they have a filter or where it would be.
Yeah, so we maybe just want to get the model number or something. So Paul, I'll welcome your comments on that information that we can reasonably gather
From
Uh,
them or from ourselves when we're there.
from either, well, relying on the occupants as little as possible. What can we for sure get that would give us information? Like take a photograph of the furnace nameplate.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
So I think would that give us size also?
Yeah.
People know what kind of heat they have, right? Like if you
Mostly,
Air,
if you say
versus-
central air, do you have baseboards? They know that,
Oh.
right?
yeah, I think that's.
mostly, yeah.
Mostly. Ah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you still have some people who don't, I mean, especially if people have heat pumps, they might not realize it's a heat pump instead of a furnace with an air conditioner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly they know it.
Yeah,
One thing like utility is, I think going through it a bit at a house would be good, but if it's a wood frame house, they
Mhm.
don't like to go across through studs. So if it's coming from the attic, where's the outlet? It's all up and down in that stud bay.
That's right. That's part of my, I haven't posted the choice algorithm yet, but that's part of it is like locate all the outlets, locate the central air vents. Cause then there's not gonna be a duct in there.
Right. Yeah, and also, I mean, there are plumbing walls. So you say the plumbing doesn't come from the attic, but there will be a plumbing stack going through the attic.
Right,
So it goes up. So there is going to be a plumbing wall
Right.
somewhere. So, but these things are not difficult to identify if you think about it and look.
right.
Just need some X-ray vision goggles.
That's what the infrared is for.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah, so I think we can do better at providing guidance to people, and I've just never built a house. I need to pay more attention to building houses. So I think that's all I have to say about the installation part, like how we're moving toward being confident in installation, and being ready to install in Epic Homes. Dominic says the installation of the equipment takes about an hour. That's without drilling any holes and without doing the blower door test.
Again, I'll just say, I don't think these are issues if we have good estimates of how much time it's going to take and we say that up front. I think where things start to break down and people get irritated is when, if we underestimate and then we're there for 3 hours and they were planning to go somewhere, they're planning to leave. And anyway, that's when I think we encounter issues. So I think if upfront though, we know, hey, this is going to be a 3-hour block of time, that's pretty normal for, having a plumber come over, or electrician, or other types of house appointments. So I think it's fine, even if we want to say like, 4-hour block. I don't know if we want to give ourselves that much cushion. That seems maybe more than is warranted, but I think a good conservative estimate will save us a lot of grief in the long run.
I think something to add to that, and something I see a lot when with the CDPHE thing, is it's one thing to tell somebody what we're going to do, especially when installing equipment, but it's another thing for them to actually see it. Because a lot of times we'll be like, oh, we're going to set up this fan. And then they finally see us like, well, I didn't know you were going to do that. So I don't know if that might be helpful while we do some of these, like the testing, like testing out, these trials with the equipment and stuff like that. I don't know if photos of us doing it or something like that. I don't know what anybody thinks about including that with the homes. Like, this is what a blower door test might look like when we set up, or doing any kind of drilling or things like that. So just something to think about, I think.
Yeah.
I have
would
thought of
say the-
providing, go ahead, Ellison.
Or just if we have the flexibility to make our own flyers now and have a bit, we can do a flyer to advertise for enrollment, but then we could also follow up with materials like that. Maybe you and Paul already have experience doing that too.
I haven't, but I have thought of this time just providing more information than people or than necessary to show that, like, here's a photograph of how the manometer will look when it's installed. The one thing, the manometers click when they self-zero and they make this little noise, which if you're noise sensitive like me, it could really drive you crazy. So I thought about they at their current frequency they didn't, but when they were but there's conditions under which they go frequently, and I was like, I could not live with this. And so I thought of making a recording of that and just posting it on a web page, so we could say, if you want to know how this is going to sound, here's a link to a recording. Yeah, Paul, I think 2 people, 2 hours, I think is reasonable, and we can say more than that at first and then bring it down if we
Yeah.
find it's true.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that 3 hours gives us plenty of time. We ought to be able to deal with everything in 3 hours, even in a semi-complex home.
But I do think that having some prep, talking it out, the particular house, talking it out ahead of time is going to help, because then you're going to have surprises, but you don't have to deal with all of them. Yeah, and then like Christian's house has an attached garage. And so there are things we don't want to do. On the other hand, it presents, new measurement possibilities. So trying to sort that out among the science team before going to install, I think will be a good step.
I have a question for timing and sequencing. If I'd like to operate from August 20th being like the first live date in a home, like an epic home.
Mhm.
If that's okay. And then if we do. Like if we, it's 2 weeks of measurement, is that right?
I
Or-
was thinking of more than that.
Okay, how long? Or,
So I would hope for at least a month.
okay,
And the reason is that I think we really benefit from seeing different weather conditions. Why are you laughing?
because the chat said forever. Which I feel like is like a
Oh,
Sandlot reference.
Yes, yes, I totally, so. Like, I would love to see it go from one weather regime to another. And yeah, man, if I could have it for a year, it'd be so awesome, but we'll have my house for a year, so I have to do, but just seeing how something performs under different conditions gives you some clues. So that's the reason for me pushing for longer measurements. We already get quite a lot out of the diurnal variation. But having a couple of windy days, if we're in quotes lucky enough to have fire days, it could be really fun. So it's really the range of conditions that I'm interested in.
Okay.
Paul
To
has
be
comments
totally-
here.
Yeah. My transparency here is that I feel a little bit, I've advocated in my past emails for us getting new devices, which I think is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
If we can get less of them, the budget for that is tight.
Mhm.
So if we, what I'm trying to optimize is how long can we be doing these? Like, can we do them in total with 10 homes over a year? So we get a month for each home, but we do it with 2 sets of 5 or 6 measurements. That's why I'm thinking about it. I think we can, if we end up where we have more homes at one time, that's where the additional omnis that we have, they're not all of the same quality right now, right? Some are old and shouldn't be used at all. They have problems. Some are on the newer end and I think are actually fine for us to use. So that's why I'm asking this question.
So
And-
I think so there's 3 components. There's how many instruments do you have and need? There's how long is each measurement, which of course, the longer the better. And then there's how long is the overall study.
Yeah,
And so let's talk offline about like how many measurements you would like to have and what that means for number of homes and length. Because we also have number of instrument limitations.
yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna be, I don't think we're gonna be at odds about needing to optimize this.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful, even next week, because I think right now, knowing August 20th, I think we could get to a point where we have all new ones ready to go by August 20th. I think that's the turnaround we could get with the conversations I've been having with Aware.
Yeah, okay. And yeah,
Um,
so let's include that in the conversation. And then one thing that Taylor wanted to bring up is there was some talk about we're providing gift cards, and we had earlier spoken about you possibly having a budget for those gift cards where we supply a subscription. I don't, perhaps that is better put in the discussion where we talk about numbers of equipment and just see
Yeah.
what resources are required and then decide where those resources are coming from.
Yeah, I'd be of the latter, because I think that's. When we were talking about gift cards before, it was before I thought we should get new instruments. Now I'm pretty convinced that's the right path to go. And that's doable because they're commercially available, low cost. So yeah, I can,
Right, yeah, so let's just talk about the sort of total resource
yeah,
budget in terms of number of instruments, dollars, and length of time.
yeah, yep.
Okay, cool. And so we can find a time, Dom is back, I believe his first day back is next Wednesday, according
Okay.
to the calendar.
Well, I might go ahead and see if Tammy and Dom can meet even within next week while I'm here, and if you're able to join virtually, that'd be great. If you're not, then you and I can follow up just to keep things moving forward. If that's okay with you.
Oh,
I
right, I
think-
put those away.
I think at the very least I can meet virtually on Wednesday. I think we're planning to be done by Wednesday,
Okay,
which would mean I travel back on Thursday. What's today? Yeah, so I'm thinking I'd probably be coming back on the 20th. At least that's when I'm checking out of my hotel.
mhm.
So I think I can be, well, I think I can be available for at the very least virtual on the 19th.
Okay,
Okay, and I've got some time in the middle of the day, and then Thursday, there's some time in the afternoon, so we'll see what we can
okay.
put together. Sounds good. Okay, and Paul, do you think you'll have a chance to review the field form before that, maybe?
Yep, yeah, I will, I've got it open. I will probably not get to it while I'm on the plane because I won't have internet, but I will do it as soon as I possibly can. So I think it'll be good to circulate it around for people to have a chance to see it, and
Yeah, cool.
comment on it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, anything else?
My last, any chance 4 PM on Thursday afternoon works? That's like I'm just gonna put it out there. That'd be ideal.
The 20th,
Yeah,
maybe.
okay.
Was that something you wanted me to join for?
No, I don't think I think this is gonna be more down in the weeds.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if I can get out a little early, Allison. So it may not be perfect.
I could do 3:30 too, 3:30 to 5 or 3:30.
I
whatever,
can't,
really.
I can't start till 4.
Okay,
So I'll block that time off
okay,
in case we can't find anything else.
okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, everyone.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.